So I want to take a look at asynchronous JavaScript and callbacks. Now, the good news is, as we're going to see, you guys have already been dealing with callbacks, particularly when you're adding event listeners and such, like you were yesterday. You would pass in the event, be it hover, click, etc., and then you would tell that listener what you would want to happen if something was clicked, if something was hovered over. So you guys have actually already been doing callbacks, which is pretty awesome. And we're just going to take a little bit more of a detailed look at callbacks. Asynchronous JavaScript is arguably one of the greatest features of using JavaScript as a language. This is going to really come into play when we get into full stack JavaScript. But we want to do a little bit of an intro to that today so you can kind of keep it fresh in your mind. Callbacks are a very important feature that allow JavaScript to be asynchronous. And so we'll take a look at why that is. To get started at the top, I want to take maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to paste 2 articles into Slack, and I want you guys to read through them and keep those 5 questions in mind that I just pasted into Slack. I'm going to paste in the links to these articles directly. So let's take a few minutes, just read these individually. Some of the info contained in these articles may be a little, a little more advanced than we're going to get into today. That's fine, but just to kind of give us a little bit of a head start on what we're going to talk about. And then keep those 5 questions in mind. I'm going to ask for some volunteers, or maybe I'll call on some lucky folks, to teach back in their own words in answer to these 5 questions. So keep in mind, why are JavaScript functions treated as first-class citizens or first-class objects? What does that mean? What is a higher-order function? What is a callback? What is an example of a callback? And then what type of function do callbacks usually take as a parameter? So keep those 5 questions in mind. We'll take, let's meet back at 1 p.m., but skim over those 2 articles and keep those questions in mind. Give you guys about 6 minutes to do so, okay? How we doing, folks? Still reading through the articles? Anyone finished? Okay.
I'm still reading at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, let's take about another minute. We're going to walk through all these questions, so just want to get you a little bit of a pre-reading time. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Let's walk through these questions. So these questions are pretty much the heart of what we want to talk about before lunch. So I'm going to put a question into Slack. If you did get this far, if you have a good understanding, come off mic or you can put the answer into Slack, either one. Why are JavaScript functions treated as first-class citizens? What is a first-class citizen in programming, in JavaScript in particular? So Zach says, treated as objects. Yes, absolutely. Because they can be used as objects, yeah. Anyone want to expand on that? So what can we do to objects that maybe we couldn't do to other data types, or we can assign it to variables? Yeah. Because functions in JavaScript are treated as objects, they have the type object. That is true. They can be assigned as the value of a variable, and they can be passed and returned just like any other reference variable. Yeah. Yeah, all these are excellent. Let me paste in, this is from the lesson plan, again, just kind of in summary of this term first-class objects. A lot of this is just kind of semantics, this idea of a first-class object. So I just want to break it down a little bit. So what a first-class object means, it means that we can use these functions, these objects, these callbacks. They can be used in any part of the code that strings, arrays, or data of any other type can be used. So it just means that objects, we can treat them just like any other data type in the language. So we can store functions as variables. We can pass them as arguments to other functions, most frequently as a callback. We can return them from other functions, or we could just run them on their own without the need to assign them to anything. So that's the gist of a first-class object. It's treated just like any other data type in JavaScript. Very nice. How about the second question? What is a higher order function? All these fancy terms. What is a higher order function? So Naz, are you just copying this from the article? Be honest. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So a higher order function is a very fancy word for the concept that a higher order function is a function that can take another function as an argument, or that returns a function as a result. So again, that's a lot of fancy language for pretty much what you guys were doing yesterday, right? So when you did the function, the method, for example, add event listener. So that is essentially a function on an object that you pass an anonymous function into, that when I click on this thing, make this other thing happen. So add event listener would be an example of a higher order function. In the screenshot that I just pasted into Slack, a couple that we're going to just take a quick glance at this morning are for each, which you guys are familiar with, .map, .filter, .sort, and .reduce. There's a lot of these functions. Those are just some of the greatest hits. Yeah, Sanaz is absolutely on fire today. It's awesome, finishing the week strong. Yeah, so a higher order function just takes another function as an argument. No big deal.
Mark, would you repeat those just really quickly, the for each?
Yeah, so I pasted the screenshot into Slack, if you take a look, and we're going to walk through examples of these. There's a lot of these, but these are some of the maybe the most frequent ones that you guys will use in your code. But a couple of the ones that I mentioned are for each, .map, .filter, .sort, and .reduce. Those are just like 5 really common ones, and those are 5 that I put together some examples that we'll look at. Cool. All right, the next question. So what is a callback? It's one of those things like, well, I know what it looks like, but maybe trying to explain it is maybe a little tricky, but what is a callback? Function to be saved for later. Yeah, that's the gist for sure. Function executed at the end of an operation. Yep. Calling on the function to run. Cool. These are all really good. A function that acts as an argument. Yeah, absolutely. Function passes an argument. Yeah, these are really good. Really good answers, you guys. So I'll put another screenshot into Slack just to kind of sum up. One defines the function first to be called later. Yeah. So I think the heart of all these answers, it's a callback. It's something that is going to happen asynchronously. It's going to happen at some other point in time. Once some other process finishes or once something else happens, that callback's going to fire. In the examples you guys did yesterday, you added an event listener to an element, and it wouldn't fire until a click event was registered. So once somebody clicked on something, then that method knows to fire off this other callback, usually an anonymous function, to do something, to change the color of a div, or to, if I hover over a div, make this function fire that's going to change the color, things like that. So the screenshot I put there into Slack. So a callback function is passed as a parameter to a higher order function. No big whoop. But the key feature of callbacks is that it facilitates asynchronous programming and avoids blocking of code. So for example, let's say that you're doing some database update or retrieval. Let's say that you're trying to do some massive query on a database. Maybe I'm on Facebook and I'm trying to get all of the Facebook users located in the state of Georgia or something. It's just a massive, massive query, and it's probably going to take a minute for the database to retrieve all of that information. So that's going to take some time, and it doesn't make sense to wait until the update is complete. So the dependent operations are sent as callbacks, so your code can proceed with other statements. So I'm going to put I'll just ask you guys if somebody wants to come off camera. Any Chipotle fans out there? Who loves E. coli? Anyone? Okay. So would someone come off camera and explain the process from when they walk into Chipotle, order their food, and walk out? Does someone want to walk us through that process? That's a nice job. Okay, so let me say this a different way. So you go to Chipotle, let's say it's lunchtime, it's super busy. There's a line of like 20 people, right? Is the process for ordering at Chipotle, so here's scenario A. When you go to Chipotle and you start your order, do you have to go down the line and complete, pay, and walk out of the restaurant with your order before the person behind you can start to plan out their burrito? Or option B, is Chipotle built in an asynchronous fashion where I can start making my burrito, I scoot down the line, and then the person behind me can start their burrito, scoot down the line, the person behind them can start. You don't have Chipotle in Europe, so okay. So anyway, so is the Chipotle experience that first option where only one person can order and pay at a time? Or is it option B, which is asynchronous, where multiple people can do things simultaneously as they're going through the queue before they check out? Who thinks it's A? Raise your hand if you think it's A. Who thinks it's B? Who is just hungry and doesn't know? Okay, fair enough. Well, the answer would be B, because at Chipotle, multiple people can order at once, right? You don't have to hold up the line until I go through, order, pay, walk out. Other people can continue that process. Another example would be if you go to the grocery store, let's say that you have, like 2 or 3 items. Nowadays in grocery stores, they have like the 10 items or less lane, or they have the self-serve lanes that maybe have like 6 or 8 different registers where you scan the stuff yourself and you check out and such. Which of those is an example of an asynchronous process? The 10 items or less lane or the self-checkout lanes? Which of those is asynchronous? Is it the self-checkout lane? Give me a thumbs up if the self-checkout lane, scratch that. Give me a thumbs up if the 10 items or less lane is an asynchronous process. All right, what about scenario B with the 6 to 8 checkouts where you can check out yourself? And something always barfs on me when I try to check out. Yeah, cool, I see some thumbs up. So obviously it's scenario B, right? Even with the 10 items or less lane, if there's 10 people in line, that first person has to check out and pay for their groceries before that next person can enter the queue and start the process. So this idea of asynchronicity is a huge advantage to using JavaScript as a language. And this is really going to come into play, again, when we get into that full stack, when we have a server running, we have multiple people accessing our app at the same time, multiple people accessing a database at the same time. It's really important to have that asynchronous feature. And callbacks are a huge part of that. Yeah, Eric says Node, exactly. Cool, 2 more questions here. So what's an example of a callback? I've already given you guys a pretty good example. Again, you guys were doing this yesterday. Does somebody want to come on mic and give us an example of some of the stuff you were doing with Tom yesterday and how that's an example of a callback?
For some of the add event listeners, for the function inside that, if we declared a different variable as a function before that and then called that function inside of the event listener?
Absolutely, yeah. Add event listener is a perfect example of using callbacks. So you guys have already been doing this stuff. I think with the code you guys were doing yesterday, I wasn't in the classroom the entire time, but I think you may have used both anonymous functions to accomplish that callback, which most of the time you're going to use an anonymous function for a callback. And then I think you guys also may have declared functions and passed those into an event listener. Did you guys do that yesterday? Did you declare a function externally and pass it in? Okay, I see some head nods. Okay, that's awesome. So you guys are already like crushing this stuff. That's great. And then this final question, what type of function do callbacks usually take as a parameter? So we've already mentioned this a little bit. Anonymous, that is correct. Another function, yeah. So generally speaking, when you're dealing with callbacks, a lot of times they're going to be anonymous. They don't have to be, but that's kind of the low-hanging fruit with callbacks. You don't have to name, you don't have to declare a function to be a callback. You can just make it anonymous, which is really, really handy. That's awesome. How are you guys feeling about those 5 questions? Like 5, asynchronicity rocks, callbacks are awesome. Okay. So again, if this isn't quite clicking right now, this is pretty much the, one of the core features of using Node in the mean stack and using JavaScript to build your full stack. It's all about asynchronicity. When we get to when we get to the full stack, we're going to be using something called promises, which are, in theory, they're pretty similar to callbacks, but they're much, much easier to work with. But it's the same principle in that I'm going to do something now and then run this later at some future point in time. Cool, let's scoot right along. 1:13, I think we're doing okay on time. I'm going to slack you out. So this was something I was playing around with when I was thinking about asynchronicity. I'm going to Slack this out. If you guys want to copy this and run it in your console. And so take a look at that code I just pasted into Slack. I would love if someone would come on mic and walk us through what this code is doing. Does someone want to explain how this code is operating? And you can copy and paste this into your console, and it should work appropriately. Or does anyone want to take a stab at what this code is doing? I just ordered a magical mystery tour from Mellow Mushroom. Well, that is absolutely correct. Does anyone have Mellow Mushrooms in their vicinity? Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Certainly isn't cheap, but it is delicious. All right, so I'll walk through this code. So at the top, I'm declaring a variable. It's actually a function called pizza is delivered. So when my pizza is delivered, I want to console log the string delivered. Then I have another variable with an anonymous function assigned to it called order pizza. So I can order the pizza. In this function, I'm going to pass in the name of the pizzeria. It could be Papa John's or Domino's, whatever. Then the type of pizza, so a supreme pizza, veggie pizza, whatever. Then I'm going to pass in a callback function as that last parameter or the last argument. And then we're going to console log, you just ordered a type of pizza from the pizzeria. And then it's going to fire that callback function. And then at the very bottom, I actually invoke the function. So I call order pizza. I'm going to order from Mellow Mushroom. I'm going to order a type of pizza called Magical Mystery Tour. And then my callback function I'm going to pass in is going to be pizza is delivered. So instead of passing in an anonymous function, I'm actually passing in a named function called pizza is delivered. Now, did you guys run this in the console? Okay, so this isn't working like perfectly because as soon as I run this code, that callback function fires pretty much, immediately. It's not really the gist of what I want to do because I order a pizza. Let's say I'm getting it delivered in this case, although Magic Mushroom doesn't deliver. You have to get some other service to do that, which is extortion, the cost to get them to bring you a pizza. But let's say that I order the pizza. While I'm waiting on the pizza, I can watch Netflix. I can do laundry, like I ever do laundry, but I can do other activities asynchronously while I wait on that pizza to be delivered. So I want to make this function a little more realistic to a real life scenario, in that I want to delay that delivery message for some point in time. So one way we can do that is with a function called setTimeout. And I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this before. But setTimeout is an example of a pretty commonly used callback asynchronous type of event. So we're going to add a setTimeout to the pizza delivery example just to see how this works. So this is an awesome example of using a higher order function that takes a callback. So I want you guys to paste this code into your console. It's a very simple example of setTimeout. So we're going to run setTimeout. We're going to pass in an anonymous function that's going to console log hello world. When is this callback function going to fire? Is this function going to fire immediately when we run this? Is it going to fire sometime in the future? 2 seconds in. Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Yeah, so I'm passing in as a second parameter there that 2000. So the setTimeout takes the amount of time, it's in milliseconds. So 2000 is equivalent to 2 seconds, right? But this is a great example of using a callback with some sort of delay or setting a timeout on when that callback's going to fire. There's also kind of a sister method called setInterval, which you guys have probably heard. So if I want something to fire at a consistent period of time over and over, you could use setInterval. But for this example, let's use setTimeout. So I'm going to paste in another piece of code. It's pretty much the pizza code from above, but now I'm going to add this set timeout to it. So does someone want to maybe put into Slack, when will my pizza be delivered? So taking a look at that code, when is my pizza going to be delivered? It's still going to be delivered really, really quickly, but in principle, close. 3 seconds, yeah, it's actually 3 seconds. Just in the interest of time here, maybe I could run this and then after lunch it'll, put 30,000 seconds or something. But yeah, so that 3,000, this is just, kind of a contrived example. But if you run this code in your console, go ahead and copy that and run it in your Google console to see it work. So if you paste it in and hit enter, you should see a message that says you just ordered a magical mystery tour from Mellow Mushroom, which will arrive in 3 minutes. Sorry, I should have put 3 seconds in there, but I think you get the idea. And then 3 seconds later, delivered fires. So just an example of using a set timeout using a delay on your callback, because generally callbacks, it's something that you want a process to run when some other process has been completed or satisfied. Cool. Any questions about set timeout? Okay, cool.
Can you go, Tom? Can you go over the syntax there?
Sure. Yeah, let me.
Delivered function and time is a parameter, but down below, you're passing into the function order pizza. You're passing in the pizza delivered callback function, and then comma with the time.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll walk through that. I'm going to do this in Replit just so we can see this a little easier. So I just pasted in that code. And what happens when I run this code is, again, I get that message that the pizza was ordered. And then, 3-ish seconds later, I get this delivered message. Now, how is all this code working together? So up here, this first the first function that I declare here, this is going to be my callback function at the end of the day. So it's pizza is delivered. Make this a little larger so you can see it. So this pizza is delivered. I'm passing in this time. So this is just a parameter. I could have hard coded this, but I just, what if they're running really slowly? And so maybe it's going to take, 10 seconds or 10 minutes or an hour or whatever. I just wanted to show an example where I can pass in the time parameter here. So this is going to be my callback function. It takes time. So this time I pass in way down here when I invoke the main function of order pizza. This time parameter gets passed into my set timeout function that says delivered. So whatever, 3,000, 4,000 milliseconds, whatever I pass in here as a parameter, it's going to get put into the set timeout right here. So it's the same as if I said, this pizza is going to take 5,000 seconds to arrive, 5,000 milliseconds to arrive. And underneath the covers, that's really what's happening. So that 5,000, whatever I pass into this function is going to be inserted here as the duration.
It's interesting that 5,000 is not actually inside the set timeout function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's another
bracket.
Yeah, so that's another great feature of using this as a callback. So let's go move on to the second function of order pizza. So order pizza is really kind of the main process of that fires off this entire sequence of events. So this order pizza function, I'm passing in the name of the pizzeria, Domino's, Papa John's, whatever. Passing in the type of pizza. Then I'm passing in a callback. So I can pass in any callback I want to right here. And then the delivery time. So I'm going to pass that in as a separate parameter. So when this function fires, the first thing we're going to see is it's going to just console log the type of pizza, the name of the pizzeria, which will arrive in delivery time divided by 1,000. I just did that so it would print out as, seconds. I'm going to change this to seconds actually, because that's probably a little misleading. So let me save that. So once this console logs here, it's going to fire whatever callback. So the delivery callback, that's just the name of the argument or the parameter that I'm passing in, which is right here. Whatever I pass in when I call this function is just going to be passed in right here. So again, this could probably, essentially what's happening is this is going to be, at the end of the day, pizza is delivered, and then down here is going to be pizza is delivered, and then whatever delivery time I pass in. So these two, here I'm using expressions to declare these two functions. Order pizza is the main function that takes a callback, and my callback is going to be called pizza is delivered in this example. So the magic happens right here at the bottom. So I know that this order pizza function takes 4 arguments, right? If I want to fire this function, I need to pass in the name of the pizzeria, the type of pizza, I need to give it a callback, and then I need to give it a delivery time. So down here, when I'm actually invoking the function of order pizza, I'm going to pass in Mellow Mushroom. Mellow Mushroom is going to be the name of the pizzeria. Magical Mystery Tour, which is the second parameter in this function. And the second parameter in this function needs to be the type of pizza. The third parameter in this function has to be a delivery callback, because that's how I define the function. In this case, I'm going to pass in this pizza is delivered function as my callback function. And this pizza is delivered function takes a time parameter or an argument. And I'm declaring that right here, delivery time. So I'm going to put in 3,000 for 3,000 milliseconds right here. And so when I invoke this order pizza function, this is going to be pizza is delivered. And then we're going to pass in the delivery time of 3,000 seconds right here. This callback function is going to be this right here. The pizza is delivered, right? So essentially, what this is going to translate to is pizza is delivered 3,000. Now down here, when I declare the function, it's going to look like, let me get the other code back here.
Mark, can I make a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
So you always say that the code flows from up to bottom. Is this a callback just a simple way of saying, okay, when you get to here and you are reading this, go back because the function that actually you are supposed to trigger here, it's before?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why the guy who coded JavaScript programming, he just said it's callback because, yeah, you have to actually call back because it's above.
Yeah, so we'll look at some other strategies. There's another way to create functions so that they don't have to be in order in your script. But the way I set this up, the script gets parsed. So it knows about this pizza is delivered function. So it knows that it exists. So when I get to the order pizza function down here, it knows that I'm going to call that function. This is where pizza is delivered gets called. Pizza is delivered gets called inside this function because that's how I invoke it. I say that the callback is going to be this pizza is delivered function. This is a little bit contrived. I don't have to let me do this. I'm going to get rid of some of these. Let me simplify this a little bit. So I'll just say that I'm going to order a Supreme from Domino's, which will arrive in delivery time divided by 1,000 seconds. So maybe this will be a little easier to dissect. So my order pizza function, all it's taking is a callback, and how long do I want to wait before that callback fires? It's just going to take 2 arguments. So down here, when I call that order pizza function, when I invoke it, the callback that I want to fire is going to be this pizza is delivered. And I want it to fire 3 seconds after the order pizza function. The function is going to fire. It's going to console log this message. And then 3 seconds later, it's going to fire whatever that callback function is. And in this case, I'm saying that I want the callback to be pizza is delivered. So let's run this one more time, see what happens. So if I save it and I run it, you just ordered a Supreme from Domino's, which will arrive in 3 seconds, and it's delivered. What happens if I change this to, let's say, 6,000? So I run it one more time. So my pizza's going to arrive in 6 seconds this time. And there we go. So it's delivered in 6 seconds. If I wanted to arrive sooner, maybe I can put 1,000 in there, which would be 1 second. So I can run that and deliver it really quick.
Mark, just another question.
Sure.
So in line 7,
Yep.
line 7, if we had actually, instead of have written delivery callback in line 7, if we had written pizza is delivered, it would also work, but it would appear at the same time.
Sorry, Pedro, could you repeat that?
So in line 7,
Yeah.
var order pizza equals function delivery callback. If we would replace delivery callback directly by the name of the function that we define above, pizza is delivered,
Yep.
it would still work, but the code would make it, or the browser would read it just in one go and will give already the answer. Is that correct?
No, so when we declare a function, the parameters that we pass into it, this could be called unicorn. This is kind of arguments are placeholders, right? So this is just whatever I pass in as a parameter here, I'm going to use the word unicorn throughout the inner scope of that method. So I could put unicorn right here.
I'm just trying. So my question is, I'm just trying to understand, why don't we type instead of unicorn? Why don't we type pizza is delivered?
Yeah, you could do that, but they're 2 different things. Pizza. So we could do pizza is delivered, which means we'd have to change it right here. But this pizza is delivered, that's a variable, it's an argument. This pizza is delivered is not this function. So when we pass in arguments, we need to name it something. Now, the way that I get to pizza is delivered is I pass it in when I invoke the function right here. This pizza delivered is that function. This pizza delivered is just like a placeholder for the code. So this is just a.
So we cannot place a function there where you are typing now.
Yeah, no, we could do that. Now we could use an anonymous function to do that. Let's see that actually. That may be a little more clear. This is a little contrived. I was just playing around with kind of the asynchronous nature. But yeah, let's pass it in as an anonymous function, sure. So that would look something like this. So we're going to order the pizza. Comment that out for a second. I know we're 3 minutes over, so if anyone wants to take off, let's meet up at, we'll say 2:35, give you guys 2 more minutes. So if anyone wants to take off for lunch, feel free. But I'll finish this code. I'll put it into Slack, and I'll finish this thought that Pedro had asked. So,
No worries.
do what?
No worries. I'm fine with that. I will.
Yeah, well, I'll finish the thought. I think it'd be good to see it anyway, and I'll paste it into Slack. But if anybody wants to take off, feel free to. We'll reconvene at 2:35.
They have, everybody's got outcomes, or the second group has outcomes, I guess. We had ours yesterday.
I'm going to come off screen share real quick. Oh, you guys need to go to outcomes today? Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, if you guys need outcomes, sorry, I didn't have Seth's schedule in front of me. Yeah, if you guys need to bail, please do. I don't want to hold you up from that. But I'm going to finish this thought. If you guys want to bail, I'll put it into Slack and we can discuss it later if you want. But have a great lunch. We'll see you guys at 2:35. So let me put this real quick.
Seth wants you at 1:30.
Yeah, sorry about that. I totally spaced on the outcomes. So we'll meet back at 2:35 p.m. EST.
I actually had all the same questions that Pedro has. So.
Yeah, this was just...
You are going to get back on this to the entire group, right?
Yeah, I'll Slack it out. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the fault. Yeah, so if you want to bail, I'll Slack it out here shortly. I'm just going to finish
I'm
up.
also going to grab the food.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. I'll finish this up and I'll paste it into Slack. And if you guys want to discuss it when we meet back up, that's totally cool.
Because I wanted to understand. I just wanted to understand why. I mean, what's the advantage of actually calling it back? It's just because we want the code to be able to be more dynamic, to be more flexible.
Well, it's like I mentioned earlier. If I'm going to order a pizza, do I want to sit there and wait for the pizza and stare at the door for 30 minutes? Or do I want to go ahead, order the pizza, and then do whatever I need to do, go for a walk, take my dog out, watch Netflix. Then when my pizza arrives, I want to be notified. So callbacks allow us to do asynchronous type of logic and programming. Again, it's the same thing as if I went to the store and I had to wait in a line of 10 people.
Okay, I understood the live events, but for instance, if can you think about of a website where that happens?
Absolutely. When you log into Facebook,
yeah.
Let's say that I log into Facebook and I want to see. Give me one sec. Let me think of a concrete example here. I'm trying to think of it because Facebook usually happens pretty instantly. That's loud.
Yeah.
Who was that? Oh, was that you?
Oh, that's me in New York. Sorry.
Okay.
So let's say that let's say this. Let's say that I'm going to Facebook and I want to go into Facebook's database. I want to grab all of the people that live in the state of Georgia from Facebook. For the sake of argument, let's say that that's 10 million people. I'm going to Facebook's database and I'm asking for the information for 10 million people. And I want to see 10 million people in my browser on my screen. Now, how long do you think it's going to take to hit the database and get 10 million people?
A lot, probably.
Just put out a number.
I don't know, but a lot. Yeah,
Let's say it takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
When I go to Facebook.com and I do that query, do I want Facebook to be completely blank and empty and I'm just like sitting there twiddling my thumbs until I get those, 5 database query, 5-minute database query? Or do I want Facebook to continue to build the page, to render the DOM, to show me my friends that are online, to show me some other news feed or feature? I want that experience. Here's another example. Another quick example. Yep. Go ahead.
What this does actually is to allow the JavaScript, instead of just flowing like this, to start flowing like truck.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And this is just one example. I mean, when we get into full stack, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on server side. There's going to be tens of hundreds of processes that are going on in the background.
Okay, so it allows to branch itself instead of just having to follow one branch.
Exactly. Yeah, you could call that. There's other terms for that called maybe blocking versus non-blocking code.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. I imagine that's a technical jargon. That's of course I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And
But
we're gonna go through that.
in terms of the real life, so because so far we were thinking about, guys, don't forget, coding always follows one line, or the browser just follows one line,
Yeah.
from here to there. So now what we are telling us is that actually with callback, you can start making the browser to make small branches or divide in different paths to read different parts of the code.
Yeah, I would be careful of thinking of them as branches or paths, but that's essentially, yeah. So here's another example. So when you go to like Expedia.com and you do an airline search, so you click, search for these flights. That generally takes 5-10 seconds, right? And you'll see a message in the browser, and you'll see a status bar moving, saying we're searching, hundreds of things for your flight. That's an example of an asynchronous process. Imagine if you clicked "Find me a flight," and the page just didn't do anything. It was just blank until it went out and got all of the flight information.
Yeah.
Then it baked it into a web page and then displayed it for you. That would be an awful user experience. But a way around that, whenever you see like a beach ball or you see like a status thing or that progress bar, those are examples, those are strategies of let me, keep the user occupied while I'm off doing this thing in the background.
Yeah.
If JavaScript wasn't asynchronous, you wouldn't even see a progress bar working. It would just completely freeze until everything finished at once.
I got it now.
Yeah.
Is it relevant?
I have a question. So is the set timeout a kind of callback where you just define what time, how long you wanted the callback to take?
Set timeout takes a callback as an argument.
Okay.
So set timeout is a method. So we give it two parameters. We give it a function that says, do this action, and then we give it how long we want it to wait before it does that.
Okay.
So the earlier example that I slacked in, here, I'll share my screen really quickly.
By the way, thank you for staying.
Yeah, no. This is a pretty important concept with JavaScript that we're going to be going over. Today's just kind of meant to be like an intro, kick the tires. So if you can see my screen, I'm just going to go into the console. Let me clear this out. And if you want to copy that set timeout code that I put in earlier, so set timeout is a method or a function. It takes an anonymous function as an argument. Now, I could pass in some function that I created that I've named, but you can run this just with an anonymous function. This anonymous function, all that it's going to do is it's going to console log hello world. The next thing that set timeout takes is the duration. So set timeout, I'm telling it, after 2 seconds, do whatever this function is telling you to do. In this case, after 2 seconds, I'm going to see a console log of hello world. So if I run that, and then like 2 seconds later, I see hello world. Bear with me just a second. So let's create another function just for, we'll say print hello. And this function is going to be my console log. Move this console log inside of here. Oops. I'll just type it out.
So then you can say set timeout, print hello, comma, 2000.
Yeah, that's perfect. Absolutely. So we just created this function print hello. It doesn't do anything, right? We just declared it. But I can call it, because it's loaded into memory. So I can do print hello, and I can see the contents of that function. But yeah, Pedro, that's absolutely the idea. So I'm going to clear this out, and I'm going to do set timeout. And so this time, instead of instead of passing in that anonymous function, I just created my function that I want to use. So I'm going to pass in print hello. And then how long do I want it to wait before it fires? That's the next.
2,000, like 2 seconds?
4 seconds, just to see it like come out a little later.
Okay.
So that would be 4,000, right?
Yeah. So let's do that. Let's do 4,000 here. Get rid of that. So let's wait 4 seconds. There you go.
Cool.
So again, whether we use just an anonymous function or whether we've already created a function that we want to pass in, either way, this is considered the callback.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, does that print hello function has to be preceding that in the code, right? Or not?
Like you were supposed to define it first.
It has to be defined. We have to place it in the memory before, otherwise it will be undefined.
Correct. Now, we haven't gone into it. We'll go into it later, but there are strategies and ways where you can write the code and it doesn't have to be in order.
Oh, I saw
We
that.
haven't gone over that, yeah.
I said the one that starts with function, right?
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
called declaring a function, and it uses something underneath the hood called hoisting. So what it'll do, it'll read the code and load all those functions into memory, then it will run the code. Right now we're just doing like var equals function, just because we want to be consistent.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say, okay, I'm not going to take more advantage of you and your time. Thank you so much.
I don't mind. I want this to be
Thank you.
clear.
No, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, I have another question for you. It's
Okay, but I'm going to bounce. I'm going to get my lunch. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
See you soon.
Ciao.
Bye.
I'm gonna stop my recording while we're here.
Sure.
Yeah,